Hi, everybody. If you're just logging in, welcome to every single one of you. My name is Brent Stephens. I'm the superintendent of Berkeley Unified School District. We really appreciate that you have set aside an hour of your afternoon to talk about distance learning as it's about to start on Monday of next week. We're joined this afternoon by a number of folks who are here to take questions. First, interim principal of Berkeley High School for the coming year, Mr. Juan Raygoza. We're also joined by Claudia Gonzalez, who is the brand new Dean of Students at the high school. As well, we have Natasha Beery, who is sort of in the background, and she'll be helping us do something called thought exchange. We'll be asking you to help us with some feedback, and then we'll be responding directly to questions. Just so you have a sense of where we're going in the hour that we're together, we'll begin with an acknowledgement of some things that are going on here in Berkeley as we're having this conversation about distance learning. We're then going to talk very briefly for about 15 minutes or so about elements of the distance learning experience that's about to start on Monday. Some of the things we share may be familiar to you all, some may be new, but we wanted just to spend a little bit of time in presentation mode sharing some information. After that, we're going to engage you all in a number of ways in questions and answers, and we'll talk a little bit more specifically about that in just one moment. And then as we wrap up right at 7 o'clock, we'll talk a little bit about what the sort of many things that we have to do in order to reopen Berkeley High School for in-person teaching. So before we begin, I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Gonzalez for an acknowledgement.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ms. Gonzalez. I am really excited to be your new Dean of Students at Berkeley High. Some of you may recognize me. I may have seen some of you in the hallways back when we were on campus. I was a teacher there for the last 10 years teaching science, and I was also a member of AMPS. So I'm just really excited to be in this new role and to be with all of you here tonight. As the title of my job says, Dean of Students, students is literally in the title of my job. And so my job is all about you. I am here for you, to support you during your difficult times, to celebrate you during the good times, to hear you and to uplift your voices. And so when they were talking about, who wants to join the student town hall, I'm like, me. I really wanted to be here with all of you and to listen to you. As Dr. Stephens was saying that we are having a bit of an acknowledgement here because so tonight's town hall is a distance learning town hall, and the content will primarily be about that. We just could not start today without acknowledging that we hear your voices and we hear the pain in your words, and we're listening to what's going on with the BHS protectors and racism in BUSD accounts. And we just wanted you to know as an admin team that we are here for you, that we care for you. And we've already in this summer been speaking with a lot of students who have reached out to us directly, and we support them, and we want to continue to acknowledge and to bring to you all that if you continue to reach out to us, we will continue to do that. And so we just want to encourage you all to keep reaching out, and that you also may have been familiar with Mr. Rock, who was in this role before, and he is still at Berkeley High, so he is still a resource for all of you, as well as the entire team. So we just really wanted to start off today by saying that we are here. I've already had some really great conversations, some difficult ones, but very powerful ones in which I've learned a lot from students already. And we all want to continue that learning to really make your experience at Berkeley High the best possible. So I just really want to say how much we mean that and that we're here for you. So thank you.
Great, thank you, Ms. Gonzalez. And then we also want to introduce to some of you or reacquaint some of you with Miles Miller. Miles is a BHS senior and is also for the whole year coming up will represent BHS on the Board of Education. So he's our student director, and we'll turn it over to Miles to offer a couple words.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Yeah, as you already know, if you're a student at Berkeley High, you most likely already know. My name is Miles, and I'm going to be your student director on the board for this school year. And I really wanted to do this town hall because throughout this process, I've heard a lot about students feeling like overshadowed by adult voices. And I think especially in high school, where we're reaching a certain age, where we've already proven how powerful our voices can be, we should have a big impact on how our education plays out for us and like what how we want our education to affect us. And I hope that we can use this time to just like discuss this very complex topic of distance learning, and that we can hopefully, you know, answer your questions maybe sometime this year, address your concerns. And me personally, I can't wait to keep working with you guys for the rest of this year. So yeah.
Great. Thank you, Miles, and welcome to the Board of Education. We're going to present a little bit of information, but please know, I would think within about 15 minutes from now, maybe 20 at the most, we're really planning to begin dialogue, and we have a number of ways that we're proposing to do that. First, we're going to be using a tool that's called Thought Exchange. We'll tell you exactly how it works, but essentially you can use your smartphone or your computer to take a very quick survey of one basic question. You're then going to be able to see everybody else's responses and rate them. And that will give us a chance to sort of pick the themes that are most common among the students who are on the call right now. After that, though, we're going to go back and forth between the Q&A button and live questions if you raise your hand. So we are asking that if you would like to ask a live question, that you represent both your first and your last name so that we know who you are, and we'll look for blue hands that have first and last names. If you still have the opportunity and want to add your class number, the year of your graduation, we welcome that as well. So we'll do all three of those things after we share just a bit of information. So here's where we're going. We'd like to talk to you just a little bit about key components of distance learning as you're about to experience it starting on Monday. We'll walk through the BHS class schedule and then talk about additional forms of support. So it is the case that there were several important concepts that we wanted to use as we built the distance learning schedule. Equity was at the center of our thinking. You can see this graphic really represents our commitments as a school district to thinking about how to redesign distance learning so that it works better for students and for families. So without reading these aloud to you, you can see these were our core commitments. And they included, as part of them, a commitment to your health and well-being through this next period of learning. We knew based on a whole bunch of feedback from students, from parents, and from teachers that there were some things we wanted to make better about distance learning. They included creating a daily schedule for live learning, as well as a really predictable routine that would take you across each week of distance learning. We knew that we had improvements to make in terms of the content of distance learning, and that students and families particularly were asking for more live interaction with teachers. Attendance was a little murky last year, especially as we closed down schools in the wake of that emergency. And so attendance is now required, just like it used to be back when we were all together under the same roof. And grading and report cards look very similar to the way they were before we closed school. So grades will take place with letters A, B, C, D, and F. And then another commitment that we knew we wanted to implement was more consistent communication with families. So let's look specifically at Berkeley High School and what the distance learning schedule will look like. And to walk us through this, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Raygoza.
Hi, everyone. So I'm going to take an opportunity to share briefly about our schedule for the fall distance learning. You all got this information a little while ago in your student emails. I also made sure to send it out to all of your families through School Messenger. So please don't feel like you're losing anything if you're not taking notes right now, or if you missed something that I said. All of this information is in your email. However, we don't want to assume that anyone has read it. So if we see this as an opportunity for me to walk you through it, that's great. So the planning for the fall actually did not start in the summer, but before that, around May, we brought together administrators, teachers, and counselors and started to play around with different schedules that we could potentially implement if we were going to start distance learning in the fall. And we relied then on student surveys that our former principal, Ms. Schwang, had sent out, asking you what your experience was in the spring, but also what teachers were hearing from you and what our counselors were hearing from you. So some of the people that we were working with, Ms. Tanya Coleman was an administrator in that planning committee, Ms. Becky Villagran, Ms. Karen Zapata, Ms. Terry Goodman. These are just some of the people that you might know that were a part of that. And what we did was we started to think about our own schedule and looked at schedules from other schools, near and far. So for example, I looked at a schedule from St. Paul, Minnesota, and tried to see what they were doing. One of the students at BHS sent me that. And we realized that every single possible schedule had issues with it. And here's what we arrived at. Our school year is traditionally broken up into 2 semesters. Each of those semesters is 2 quarters. And we decided to break it up into 8 terms. Again, we want to know what concerns you have and what questions you have about this. But the way it's going to work is that terms 1, 3, 5, and 7, you'll have periods 1, 3, 5, and 7th period if that applies to you. During terms 2, 4, 6, and 8, so those are alternating, you'll go to periods 0 if that applies to you, and then periods 2, 4, and 6. The overwhelming majority of our BHS students have 6 classes, periods 1 through 6. Some seniors will have an open 1st or an open 6th, and quite a few students, but not too many, have a 0 and or a 7th period. Each of those terms has a start and end date, which is included in the email that I sent you. If you notice, it's pretty even. At the end of the year, you will have spent 89 days in half of your classes and 90 days in the other half of your classes. Additionally, the 2nd semester is just longer than the 1st semester, and that's because we're starting earlier in the summer and ending the 1st semester at winter break. So rather than you coming after winter break and then having to take finals, that's going to be done at winter break when you come back. It'll be a new start with a 2nd semester with term 5. So you can see the schedule here, the times. We are going with a 9:15 a.m. start time for periods 1 during term 1 and period 2 during term 2. We'll share a little bit later some of the feedback and survey data we got from students and families about the start time. We heard you on what you preferred for start time. Our passing periods are 15 minutes. We think we needed to more than double the regular passing periods because students and teachers need a break. If you've been on Zoom for an hour-long period, you can definitely use a break to get away from the computer, use the restroom, whatever you need to do. Lunch falls after your 2nd class if you only have 6 classes. And so you see that. If we can go to the next screen. So again, the school year will be broken up into 8 terms, with each one lasting between 4 weeks and 5.5 weeks. One of the most important pieces of feedback that we heard on the survey that our teachers said that you shared with them and that our counselors said that you shared with them, and the counselors' attention in the spring was focused on the kids who were not engaged, who were just completely checked out, was that 6 classes was really hard to manage and it was very stressful. It was anxiety inducing. And that's when we had very little, in fact, 0 required instruction live and optional office hours. And so there was little structure, little consistency. And so we know that in the fall, we're gonna have some of those systems in place for consistency, for common expectations across classes, for actual live instruction, for grades that are letter grades and not pass, no pass. And so we had to think about what it means to have all those expectations in place and still ask students to take 6 classes at one time. So we decided to go with a model that has you take half the classes at any given time. Again, this is if you have 6 classes in your schedule. For all of our technology, we'll be using Google Classroom for your classes periods 1 through 6, as well as 0 and 7. There's a couple important features that we wanted to build into the school day. So one of them is that on Mondays and Thursday afternoon, we built in student and parent equity engagement. We know that your families are absolutely critical every day, and even more critical because the role of parent, guardian, and teacher are now blended somewhat, right? You're doing your schooling from home. And so we wanted to build time into the day for teachers to be able to engage with you rather than this being an afterthought or something that had to be done outside of the school day. So that'll be happening Mondays and Thursdays when teachers really have time to reach out to you. Wednesdays are a very interesting and new model for this. So again, what does it look like to support students that are struggling in class, right? And how do we do this in the school day? As I've been sharing with students and parents as I talked to you in the last couple of weeks, is when something is done after school, it's often thought of as an afterthought. right? Come to after school tutoring or go see your teacher after school. But we wanted to build a support system inside of the school day so you can still take care of whatever you need to take care of outside of the day. So on Wednesdays, we built 45-minute support groups with no more than 15 students in there, where your teachers will be looking at data, looking at who needs extra attention. And it can be a fluid group. It doesn't have to be the same group each term. It can be who needs help this week, who's struggling with an assignment, who really needs a push before we get to finals. And they'll be reaching out to you. It'll be very intentional, and they'll be expecting that you join so that the group of instruction is even smaller. So here I'll pass it off to Ms. Gonzalez.
All right, so continuing on with the high school learning experience, one of the expectations we are going to have is that your Zoom cameras be on. And this will be different from in the spring, where some of you may be logged in and had your camera off the entire time. There are a couple of different reasons for this, but all students will be expected to have their cameras on during Zoom. And if you have a reason why you cannot have your camera on, you will be asked to communicate that with your teacher on an individual basis. And if there is an arrangement made, we're still asking that all students have their cameras on for at least the first 10 minutes. And that is to verify identity. So one of the primary reasons for having cameras on is so that we can make sure we know who we're talking with and who is in our classroom spaces. As you could imagine, if somebody logged on without having their camera on the entire time, we have no idea who's on the other side of that screen. And I know that for some of us, it's like, oh man, you're gonna see my background. I mean, look at me, y'all are in my apartment right now. So I understand, like it can be a little uncomfortable. So we're trying to work out ways that we can help your, have your computers with like the background screens or something like that. But just remember that we are all in this together, and that really what's behind your screen doesn't matter. We wanna see you and build community with you. So those are the primary reasons why we're asking for instruction, for cameras to be on during instruction. We're also asking that you post your first and last name on your Zoom window. And that is also, again, for identity. When you get let into a Zoom room, we're asking that you have that on so we know who we're letting into the space, again, for security purposes. And then also just a reminder that all of the same expectations will apply that would have applied to you if you were on campus. So as far as like behavior and things like that, we're going to still have those same expectations through distance learning. For your technology tools, as Mr. Raygoza was mentioning, you are going to be using Google Classroom. So you will receive your assignments through Google Classroom, and you'll have classroom materials through Google Classroom. Here, we have Zoom for live classroom instruction, but it was also relayed to staff earlier today that it is possible to use Google Meet. And so they may be using that platform, but you will use either Zoom or Meet for classroom instruction. And then you will also be using Remind. Your teachers will be communicating with you and your families through Remind messages. And then also, briefly mentioned earlier, we are switching. This is different from the spring where your grades were pass, no pass. This fall, they will go back to A to F scale. And so you can check out in the course catalog some more information about the grading policies. But this will be different, again, just as a reminder. In the spring, you received a pass or no pass. In the fall, you will receive a letter grade, and grades will be updated in Illuminate. You may see some grading going into Google Classroom, but the expectation is that the grades will be updated in Illuminate, and the Illuminate grade is your grade in that class. As far as attendance was also mentioned that it is required. It is not optional office hours, as some of your teachers may have had in the spring. These are required class times, similar to when you're at Berkeley High and there's a bell schedule. So your classes will be Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, and you should attend your entire 1-hour class for all of your classes. And then Wednesday, as Mr. Raygoza was mentioning, there's a support, support system set up on Wednesdays. And so attendance is required for these 45-minute support periods if your teacher has requested that you attend. And so your instructor will notify you via Remind that you are invited to attend this session on Wednesday. And so if you receive that invitation, attendance is required for that on Wednesday.
And I'm going to close out this slide discussing independent work, or what you might hear referred to as asynchronous work. It's not live, or more traditionally homework. So this is something we're taking very seriously, because in the spring, we had all kinds of experiences that students shared. Some of you would tell us that your teacher didn't give homework at all. Some of you would tell us that your teacher was giving 3 hours of homework every single day, right? And so how do we again try to get to a point where there's some consistency, definitely across teachers, but for sure within the same content class, right? If you're taking chemistry, your friend's taking chemistry, there should be some consistency and some common expectations there. So for this, in fact, we're guided quite a bit by the state of California's new requirement for instructional minutes, both synchronous time that a student has to be live with teachers, but also asynchronous, the work that you do outside. And what that means is we're actually playing with minimums in terms of minutes. So on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, each of your teachers, once again, most of you will have 6 classes, is supposed to give you a minimum of 20 minutes per class of homework. So if each of your 3 teachers were to do that on Monday, you would have an hour worth of homework. We expect that teachers might give you more, but this really goes to a mechanism that we can ensure that a teacher doesn't give you no extension activities, no ways of doing your work or learning outside of the classroom. On Wednesdays, that increases because it's small group instruction. So already those 3 blocks are 45 minutes instead of an hour long, and not everyone will be requested to attend by your teachers. So on Wednesdays, in order to meet that minimum requirement by the state of California, each teacher will assign a minimum of 70 minutes per class period. We're working with teachers to make sure that if a student is asked to be at the small group instruction, those 45 minutes are taken into account, right? We wouldn't want you to attend those 45 minutes and then have 70 minutes of homework for that same class. Now, you should be assured in all my communications to our teachers, we're making it very clear that we would really encourage them to be compassionate with you and to be considerate of the amount of homework that they give each of you and are in communication with the rest of your teachers. So even though we're giving them a minimum, because that is our requirement by the state, that they are considerate in not assigning you multiple hours of homework every single day. And then all of your teachers are doing that. And before we know it, you have 5 or 6 hours worth of homework every single day. So this is something that definitely, as it starts coming up, as you start classes on Mondays, we encourage you to reach out to us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Raygoza. I wanted to share just for a second the results of the survey that we conducted about when to start school. Many of you took a survey, many of your parents took a survey, and you might be curious about how the community responded about when to start school, either 9:15 or 11. So what I've presented for you here in the bottom left-hand corner is the overall results of Berkeley parents as they responded to this. It was generally the case that most parents wanted the 9:15 start, 54%. 40% of families said 11 would be better. And then there were 6% of families that said either one is just fine. We did then also talk to parents who are essential workers, and the results were just about the same. And then we talked to our Berkeley High School teachers who are also parents of younger children, and the results were a little bit different. 53% of teachers who are also parents preferred the later start time. If we look at student results, what you all said, here is how you responded to when you wanted to start school. The majority, 55% of students decided or responded that 9:15 was the better time. 50% said that 10 o'clock would be the best time, and it was only a quarter of students, 25%, said that 11 o'clock would be their preference. So taking all of this into account, family responses, teacher responses, and as well student responses, we decided that 9:15 would be the best time to start the school day. And we do recognize that it doesn't please everybody, but did take into account the preferences of the majority of our families and students. So at this point, we're going to stop presenting, and we hope to be able to engage you in some dialogue. We're going to do that in 3 different ways. First, we're going to do something that's called thought exchange. And my colleague, Natasha Beery, is going to tell you exactly what to do so that all of you can participate. After we do the thought exchange, we'll be able to see exactly how you've responded to this question and how you're rating the responses of other students who are on the call. We're then going to look at the Q&A that is already beginning to, I think we've got 12 questions asked right now. And any student who would like to ask a live question is welcome to raise their hand. And if you haven't done that before, you can click on the participants button down at the bottom of your Zoom screen. That will then lead you to a white panel. And in that white panel is a blue button that says raise hand. So let's jump right into this. I guess we've got just one more slide to share. And this is a little bit of information about how to access additional support materials. So for any family who needs meal service, please know that we're going to continue to offer those meals. We'll be doing it in the morning, and we'll be doing it at all of our schools from 7 to 10 a.m. every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And you can stop by any school, pick up multiple meals, both breakfasts and lunch, and for multiple days as well. EdHub is still functioning. It's a great place to go to get school supplies and to get Chromebooks from the district if you happen to need one. And then the two email addresses that are on the right-hand side of your screen, Student Tech Help and Chromebook Help, are both great ways to get yourself help and to get access to a Chromebook if your family needs one. Please remember the Berkeley Health Center is open right now. And so we will share a little bit of information about how to get access to that. It's also on our website. And then the high school has two family liaisons who are great working with parents who may have questions about how to access any of the resources that are listed here or who have other questions about the high school. We do want to be sure that students have these numbers just in case. If you find yourself or a friend in crisis, here are two numbers that are important for you. These are also available on the Berkeley High School website. One is the number to crisis support services, the other to suicide prevention line. And then if something is truly urgent that worries you about yourself or a friend, 911 is always a number that you can call to get yourself help. So with that, I'm going to ask Natasha Beery, who is my colleague and works in the district office for Berkeley Unified, to share with us exactly how thought exchange works. And this is the first way that we hope to engage with you for the next half an hour.
Thank you, Superintendent Stephens. Hello, everybody. I've just dropped into the chat, which someone did point out, yes, chat is disabled for this meeting in order to prioritize focus on Q&A, but I believe you should be able to see pop up in chat, possibly, a URL, a way to connect to this thought exchange. Whether or not you can see that, though, you can certainly, I hope, see this screen if you are online, and here's what you get to do. In order to, as Superintendent Stephens described, share your thoughts and take a look at the thoughts of others, you jump onto this platform. You've got various ways to do it. One is if you've got your cell phone in hand, hold it up to the screen, snap the QR code there, and it'll take you straight to the website. I see a lot of you are already there. You guys are a lot quicker than the older generation who were on this last week. You can also go to tejoin.com and then use these numbers 481-735-004. And the idea is that you give your response, questions or suggestions regarding the fall distance learning plan. And then once you've shared a thought or two, really important that you take the next step and start taking a look at the thoughts of your peers. Try to rate as many as you can in the next, whoops, I gotta get the clock going, next 4 minutes. And then we'll see what rises to the top. It's really great if you can rate, say, 10 to 20 thoughts, and that way we really get a good sense of what the group as a whole sees as the ideas or suggestions or questions of greatest concern. So I'm going to shut up now and let you do it. We still have 2 minutes left, so there's plenty of time for you to add your thoughts. Changing this to a visualization of people and their thoughts engaging with each other. I see more participants than thoughts, which is not unusual, but would like to give you some more time to share and to rate. We still have a little over a minute, and we will keep it open even after we pause to look at some of these. Great, just less than a minute, but I think, oh, we did it. We hit over 1,000 ratings, fantastic. And we just have about 45 seconds to go. Okay, and thank you. You can continue to rate and add thoughts, but I'm just popped up the top thought, which is about forgetting subjects. Aren't we going to forget things between terms? For language classes, this could be detrimental. Who wants to take that? And let me know, folks, Superintendent Stephens and Principal Raygoza and Ms. Gonzalez and Mr. Miller, how many of these you'd like. I'll just keep doing them until you tell me to stop.
Yeah, I think it'd be great, Ms. Beery, if we can go through, let's do about 10 of these and sort of make sure that we're covering the most highly rated of the comments.
Great.
And then I propose after that we have a look at what's in the Q&A, and then we'll jump over to the raised hands. Anybody want to try this first question? And I'm happy to if you want me to. Mr. Raygoza, you're muted. There you go.
Got it. So I can speak a little bit to this, and I've had an opportunity to talk to students. Again, I don't think we want to ignore that, you know, this term plan has concerns, right? There are gaps in between terms. That was also true for a schedule that we considered that was quarters, where we just had Q1 and Q3, Q2 and Q4. And so there you would have about 9 to 10 weeks in between the gaps. This is something we're considering right now. So one, and I think Ms. Gonzalez, who you just recently taught as of last year, perhaps you can speak to how a teacher now would get this schedule and plan their curriculum so that you have these natural breaks in between terms, right? Either you're doing project-based learning, or you have a summative assessment at the end of the term and you pick up something. Of course, in language, in math, in science, you need some consistency. And so as of right now, I'm speaking with all of our teacher leaders, and those are the heads of all the 5 SLCs at Berkeley High, U9, and all of our departments around what it looks like to provide for all of our students extended learning during the off terms, right? Even though you wouldn't have access to your teachers during the terms that you don't have it, there's still an opportunity for you to extend your learning beyond that. So what does this look like? For example, this question also applies for if you're in a class and you're planning to take an AP or an IB exam. You now have your class for 89 or 90 days instead of 180, a little bit less than that if the tests are in May. So teachers are working right now on materials that they can provide you with during the off terms. It's not going to be the same because you're not going to have your teacher accessible. We're also looking at other staff that normally performed other roles and what roles they can perform during the off term. So for example, if you ever went to the College and Career Center after school, you would see that it was packed, and Mr. Matt Laurel supported that program. And so now we're working with them around what does it mean to support our students during the off terms when you don't have your teacher and when there is a gap, and how can we provide a virtual program for that? The Berkeley High School Development Group also funds a lot of our after school tutorials, for example, for Math 1, 2, and 3, but also for all content areas. So do we still have funding there, and how can we use that funding to cover all of our contents to provide instruction during off terms that you can access? But I think Ms. Gonzalez, if maybe you can speak to what would it mean for a teacher now that you've received this schedule, right? It's only a few days before the school year begins, to plan your curriculum and think about this question in mind.
What you were saying is absolutely correct, that a lot of teachers that I've been talking with, and even if I was doing it myself, we would have planned for a 4.5-week chunk of time would probably be a unit or two. And so your classes are naturally broken down into units, whether it's by chapters or whether it's by topics. And so instead of having, for example, maybe 4 or 5 or 6 topics in the whole semester, if you broke that down in half, you'd have 2 or 3 per term. And so then your teachers would figure out ways to have like your quizzes or your assessments or your projects be due, but before that term is ended. So it wouldn't be that you would have, let's say, read a book during term 1, and then you're going to do a project on it in term 3. You would wrap up the material most likely during that term. So you're not having to hold on to all of that for all those weeks in between. And so that your teachers would be doing their best to align their units with the number of weeks that they have in each of those terms.
Thank you, Ms. Gonzalez. The next top question was, how will students be expected to complete their physical education requirement during distance learning?
This is a great question, and a question that we're working on right now. So right before this, couple things. Our PE waiver program is very popular. Ms. Tammy Rose, the vice principal of AC, oversees that. We're trying to find ways to connect students with virtual versions of PE waivers. Just before this meeting, for example, we finally got what looks like the proposal from the YMCA to do a completely virtual program. Our very first concern, Ms. Rose, Mr. Rock, and I were looking at this proposal, is there a fee? Because we just don't think that would be an equitable approach to say to students, hey, you can go to the YMCA and complete your PE waiver and then expect that you have to pay a fee. So that's something we're asking right before this town hall started. A lot of our students are signed up for our PE classes. We have 3 PE teachers. And so they're going to be working on a way to provide that. But we definitely hear the concern about seniors who have to complete PE for graduation.
Thank you, Ms. Raygoza. Next question or statement, I guess, is that I think that learning in general, but especially for languages and AP classes, will be extremely hard for students with the block period system.
I guess we're going to learn sort of what this all feels like. This is an experiment for all of us. I do know that, one of the things we had to sort of make a difficult decision about whether we would require 6 classes or drop down to 3 classes at a time. Once we made the commitment to move to 3 classes, thinking that that would be the most reasonable load for a student to carry at any one time, we just had to think about how to divide up the year. We could divide it by semesters, by quarters, or by terms. And after a lot of very sort of thoughtful conversation, most teachers at the school thought that it would be best to spread terms out over the course of the year, even though there's going to be some difficulties with this. So we're going to pay close attention to how it works, but that was really the rationale. Once we decided to go to 3 classes for the sake of a manageable load, this seemed like the best way to spread out classes across the whole year.
And thank you. I see there are several questions about finals. Just, one is just like, what's it going to look like on Zoom? And then this, specific suggestion here that there be an all-class review before finals, concerned about being rusty on a topic, and then people without notebooks will be even worse off. Comments about finals?
Yeah, so, I mean, we as of yesterday got the plan together. So now we move on to all the details, right? We did indicate the dates for the finals on there. And we usually have 3 days for semester finals with 2 periods in each. So the next thing we move on to is I'm going to be meeting with the entire administration team and all of the teacher leaders. And I'll mention that a lot, teacher leaders, because it's a very representative group of the campus, right? It's teachers from every SLC, small learning community, including the universal ninth grade, and every department. So they bring with them the experiences of what it looks like to do a final in math, in art, in English, in history. Everything is covered with this group of teachers. And so we have to figure that out. What does it look like to have a final in Zoom? Are we still going with a 2-hour final? Are we doing something shorter? Absolutely. I hear the concern here about having review. So we do have less days, but we have to prepare our students. The messaging that has gone on to teachers is, again, I mentioned this before, compassion for students. We have to begin the year as if all students are behind, because all of us left mid-March and education just was not the same for the second half of March, April, May, and the beginning of June. So we can't assume that just because a student got 6 passes that they're good to go, right? You may have moved on to the next level in your classes, but there has to be a sense that we have to review whatever the building blocks were for that class. And that's going to be the same before finals at the end of semester 1. So term 3 and 4, and before term 7 and 8. But I can assure you again, now that we have the schedule, we move on to exactly those kind of questions. What do finals look like?
Can I add one quick thing to this too? Because I think a lot of students haven't seen this yet, but Principal Raygoza sent out this email yesterday, I think, or the day before. But pretty much, you're not going to be taking all 6 of your finals at the end of the first semester. You're going to be taking it after you have 2 terms of 3 classes. So pretty much at the end of term 3, once you've had periods 1, 3, and 5 for 2 terms, then you're going to take those finals. And then at the end of term 4, after you've had periods 2, 4, and 6 for 2 terms, then you're going to take the finals for those classes. You're not going to be taking all 6 finals at the end of the semester. So I can assume there will probably be some built-in review with those teachers of what you did in the term prior before you take your final.
So
That's what
go ahead. Oh, actually, I see a more highly rated question as well. Hold on, I'll pull up this one. There's several questions about pace, worrying about how much material is going to be covered, whether it's going to be compressed and, you know, specific to AP and IB, but also just in general. Is there going to be a super fast pace or less material covered, and how are kids going to be prepared?
Very good question. So to put it in context, all of our teachers officially return tomorrow. Tomorrow is the first work day, right? And they're all going to be engaging in professional development. And then on Friday would normally be a day when they set up their classroom, and classes start on Monday. So many of them have been working all summer. And to this question of AP classes and also IB classes for IB tests, these are external tests that some students choose to take and others don't. They've been wrestling with this question for several weeks now. And it comes down to, do we cover half the material in the year, since I see my students half the year, or do I go twice the speed? And I don't know if either of those is going to serve you, right? Because to cover half the material means you're half prepared for the AP or IB tests. And to go twice the speed, we already know that students are struggling at regular speed. So what does it mean to go double the speed? So I think in the email, if I'm remembering correctly, that I sent to you all, it was a very similar email to what I sent to teachers. And that's that information is coming out soon about AP and IB, because once again, here, you need to know that our admin team doesn't just make unilateral decisions. We consult with the teachers, and they're the experts. They're the ones that are teaching you. They know the material. They've gone through AP summer training. They prepare you for the tests in May. So right now, they're currently looking at a proposal that we put forward and giving us feedback on what it means to teach an AP and IB class, and specifically how they can use those off terms, right? How they might be able to use the Wednesday small group instruction, how they might be able to be creative with 7th period or 0 period if you don't already have a 0 or 7th period. So I don't have the perfect answer right now, but I can tell you that we are all thinking about, with less time in class, how do we make sure that students who are in an AP class, in an IB class, are still being prepared for it? Because none of our teachers are thinking, I see you half the time, so I'm not getting you ready for it. But it's a tough question to try to answer, so they're working on it as we speak.
Yeah, I might propose that we take a couple of the questions that are right now in the Q&A And some of them are about sort of just how to get information. So there's a question in the Q&A about freshmen and hives and how an incoming ninth grader would find out what hive she's in.
So ninth graders will be picking up their schedules if they haven't already logged on to Illuminate and checked their schedules. And I believe we're still using the same system where at the top of your portal on Illuminate, you'll see your counselor and also your hive assignment. So in the universal ninth grade, we have about 800 students, 820 students, and we have 7 hives. We try to roughly get to about 110 to 120 students per hive. Heterogeneous grouping, so we make sure that they're very diverse among many factors, and so they'll be able to find their hive assignment on there. And I should add, because I've been talking to a couple incoming ninth graders this week, the universal ninth grade recognizes, the teachers recognize that you're missing out as a ninth grader on what would have been a full day orientation where you get to know your peers, you get to know the campus. And so the first week of ninth grade will definitely be a lot of opportunities for you to learn what it means to be a high school student, but also for you to have community building. We don't want to let the fact that you're not going to be on campus take away from the fact that you're new to BHS, and we want you to feel comfortable in your hive and with your peers. So first, be on the lookout for details about the first week. But if you look onto the portal, you'll be able to see your hive assignment.
Thank you. And there's a couple other questions here that are just about sort of how to get basic information. There's a student who's asking how to find out their email address and Google Classroom login information.
So as far as the Google Classroom login information and all of the remind codes, the teachers are going to be emailing you. They've been asked to send you that information prior to Monday so that you have the login codes. But your student email will be the primary way that your teachers communicate with you and send you all of the links that you need. As far as your email, if you're unable to access your student account, we do have our tech folks who can help out with that. Maybe, I don't know if we can put it into the chat somewhere, just the email addresses to send those tech support requests to, but Mr. Albinson and Mr. Clegg are really good about helping out students with student email account issues. Yeah, I think that might be the easiest way to get email support. But for those of you that can access your student emails, that's what you should check. Teachers will email you there with your Zoom or Google Meet codes. And a lot of the information for Remind may actually happen once you're already in class, and it will probably also be posted in Google Classroom once you're logged into that.
Great. What if we jump over now? We've got 2 students on the call who have their hands raised, and we'll take some live questions as well. Jessica, I think you're behind the scenes and can help unmute. Let's first go to Steve.
All right, Steve, you're on. You have to unmute yourself. Steve, you need to unmute yourself. I'm not able to unmute you.
May not be working. Why don't we go on to the next raised hand, and that's Emily.
Okay, go ahead.
Emily,
Hi,
are you?
thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, just fine. Hi.
Okay, thank you. Just wondering, for students who are not able to come this week to pick up materials, is there an alternative?
Yeah, there is. Ms. Gonzalez, I think you were just on campus. So the administrators are all taking shifts being on campus this week for registration. We had all the grade levels. Friday is the makeup day for anyone on here that can't make it to their specific day by grade in Alpha. Friday is a makeup day. There's going to be time, and you can expect an email from Ms. Tammy Rose. Again, she's the AC Vice Principal and also in charge of registration with what that's going to look like. You'll probably hear it referred to as Ed Hub, the BHS Ed Hub. So we're going to continue it. We're working with our office staff to make sure that there's times in the day after the first day of school for you to continue to pick up your textbooks. And not just textbooks, but we have a lot of our science teachers who would love to get out lab materials to you so you can do that at home. We have a lot of our math teachers who want to get copies of the modules out to you, and art teachers who want to get supplies out to you. Same thing with our CT teachers. They would love to get some hands-on materials. So yes, the pickup structure is not going to end this Friday. So expect an email from Ms. Tammy Rose on what it looks like and what the times are for you to continue to pick up materials and your textbooks next week. If you're eager, you can go ahead and also send an email to tammyrose@berkeley.net because we've had a couple families and students said, you know, I'm out of town or I can't make it. What's another way for me to pick up my materials? Can I have another student, a friend of mine, pick up materials or another family member? And Ms. Tammy Rose understands we have to be flexible. So we're making those arrangements so that you get the stuff that you need.
Great, thanks, Mr. Raygoza. Let's go to another raised hand, and we have Anushka.
Can you hear me?
Yes, just fine. Hi.
Okay. Hi, I have two questions. First, I was wondering about labs for 10th, or just labs in general. How are we going to do labs if we're not allowed to meet in person? Like, how's that going to work?
I know I don't know the answer to that. Have you had a chance to check in with science teachers about how they're thinking about this difficult challenge?
I haven't heard.
Oh, you haven't heard. And how about you, Mr. Raygoza? Have you had a chance to check in with science teachers yet?
Sorry, Anushka, I definitely, I'm sorry for interrupting.
Yeah.
I'm working closely with Ms. Amin Watson. We just talked earlier this morning. She's the Dean of Attendance, but also the administrator over the science department. She's working as quickly as possible with the science department leads, Mr. Nick Pleskotch and Colleen Simon O'Neill. So labs that students are referring to is our AP classes and IB science classes have lab components with them that traditionally would happen either 0 or 7th. And so the teachers are trying to figure out exactly what that looks like. So one, the first thing we have to figure out is how they're scheduled, right? If you have labs and your teacher offers it during a period when it's on your off term, what does that mean? So teachers are trying to be creative so that you have your lab during the term that you have the class. The second question goes to exactly what we hope EdHub is for. Because we cannot offer in-person instruction, the teachers are trying to figure out a way to get lab materials to you. So for that end, a couple weeks ago, I started talking to Mr. Aaron Glimmy, who's eager, if any of you have ever had Mr. Glimmy, to create these little bags with little materials that we can use at Hub so you can take it with you. And it'll be stuff that you don't have to bring back. So disposable, recyclable, so that you can do those labs. So they're working on it right now, and that'll be a part of EdHub.
I have a
Thank you, Rika. Great question. Go ahead, Miles, please.
that because I see a lot of this question being asked a lot in the Q&A also about labs. Will labs be happening during the 0 or 7th period assigned time, depending on the term, or will teachers be doing that during their class time?
They still have available 0 or 7th. So, you know, for example, if term 1 starting on Monday, you're taking, you know, AP chemistry 1st period, and that teacher has lab 7th period, then you're going to have it in that term, right? What we want to be careful with is if you have AP chemistry 1st period and your teacher is holding lab 0 period, right? Because that would then be held terms 2, 4, 6, and 8. I think Dr. Stephens would encourage us to be flexible. And so we're going to look at what that looks like, right? If it makes sense for a teacher and the class of students to have 0 period lab during 1st period, then I don't see why we can try to make that work. So as a basic structure, we want to have periods 0, 2, 4, 6, and then 1, 3, 5, 7, but we might be a little bit flexible with that. So it's the same thing we're considering if you're on the jacket, if you're in yearbook, if you're in bridge 7th period, any of these music classes 0 period, what does it look like to maybe hold them throughout the year, for example?
Great. Thank you both. Let's do a couple more raised hands. We've got about 4 minutes left, and we'll go to Isabel. And Jessica, are you able to allow Isabel to talk? Oh, I see the hand is down now. So Jessica, let's try Citra, I think is the next raised hand.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Hi there.
Hi. So my daughter, she's in the 11th grade, AMS. And as far as I understand, there is a subject called CSP for 11th grade, which they have to do internship on 2nd semester. And that's required for them to be able to graduate. With the current situation, I'm not sure if that's still possible to do internship in person. So how are we gonna do that? Do they still require to do in-person internship? If not, then what are the plans? Thank you.
Thanks for that question. I'm not familiar with this, Mr. Raygoza. Do you? I doubt very much there's a plan for this at this point, but do you think you could speak a little bit to this?
Yeah, and Ms. Gonzalez, as a former teacher and teacher leader of AMPS, perhaps you can speak to what your colleagues might be doing. For the last 3 years, I've been the vice principal of AHA and CAS, and like AMPS, they also offer internships, right? So students would have an early release during the week and go to an internship. So the number one thing we started to think about, and that we're not, it's a non-negotiable for us, is student safety. And so we need to think about if this is even a possibility, right? Which right now we don't think it is. How would we pair our students up with places that we're sending you that are following all the health guidelines? Again, we're not there yet where we can approve for you to have that interaction with other companies or businesses or organizations, but that's the number one thing, right? That we're not just pairing you and sending you off to somewhere that's going to be unsafe for you. But our teacher leads, and so we have a couple of teacher leads in CAS. We have Mr. Phil Halpern and Mr. Max Wheeler. And then in AHA, Miss Amanda Toporek is a teacher lead this year. And Ms. Devin Brewer are having those conversations right now with Mr. Rock, who's stepping into my role as vice principal to figure out what does it mean for AHA and CAS students to have internships if we can't send you off and you still have, for example, AHA Best or CAS Best, your senior seminar with internship. What would your experience look like? So again, it's one of those questions where I'm saying that our teachers are figuring this out. So you still have a good experience in the learning community. Ms. Gonzalez, I don't know if you want to speak about AMPS.
Just a little bit to add on, I know we've been in communication with some of our internship partners. Much like the schools, they're working to revamp their programs to be able to happen virtually. So some of them might be able to offer Zoom type internships, but like Mr. Raygoza said, the most important thing is the student safety. So we are not exploring anything in person until it is safe to do so and allowed to do so by the city of Berkeley, the county, the state, all of that. But there are some that may be available as new types of internships because the companies, the business partners, the community partners have been trying to find ways to still support students who would have had an internship with them and now can't because of the school closure.
Okay, thank you both. I can see that we're just arriving at 7 o'clock right now, so I thought I'd offer just a couple of words about school reopening, and then we're going to wish you all a good evening. So we do know right now that we will remain in distance learning mode. We don't have a date that we know we will open schools by. Essentially what we're waiting for is that the rate of transmission of COVID-19, both in Alameda County and in the city of Berkeley, is declining for 14 consecutive days, 14 straight days. Right now, we've not been experiencing that. We're sort of at a steady pace in terms of the ongoing transmission of COVID-19. So we will continue to follow guidance that's given to us both by the county and the city, and they're looking at that 14-day rate. And when we get permission, we'll still have to figure out whether or not the district and the school is ready to implement all of the various health precautions that we are guided to. This will be quite complicated, and so we're working hard now to put those plans in place, but please know that it's both about the community health conditions and our own preparedness to protect the health and safety of students and staff. So we'll report more as we go along, but right now we just don't have a date and we can't say when we'll be permitted to reopen any of our schools or programs. As we wrap up, I want to offer a couple words of thanks. So first to all of the panelists who took a little bit of time out to try and offer their answers to questions. So that's to our new Dean of Students, Ms. Claudia Gonzalez. Thank you very much for being here tonight. To the new interim principal, Mr. Juan Raygoza, thank you as well for your time. You've also been on the town hall circuit a lot these last 2 weeks, and I appreciate your time very much. Natasha Beery behind the scenes help with the thought exchange. Thank you very much as always. And Jessica Lopez, you're also behind the scenes. Thanks for helping us set this up. And then I also want to acknowledge Miles Miller. He was the one who had this idea to put together a student town hall. So I'm really glad that you came up with the great idea, Miles. Thank you very much. Appreciate all of you, all more than 200 of you who joined for the hour just to get information about what things are going to look like. On behalf of the entire district, we just want to thank all of you, our students. These continue to be really exceptional circumstances, and your resilience, your grit, your good humor is still showing through to all of us, and we can't say how much we appreciate it and how much we admire you for hanging in there through these tough times. So please have a great rest of this week. Enjoy the last couple days of summer, and we're going to see everybody virtually starting on Monday at 9:15 in the morning. So thanks everybody. Please have a great night. Bye-bye.